You've seen the job postings. We strongly encourage applications from women and underrepresented groups. You've seen the company websites with carefully curated photos of diverse teams. You've sat in the internship orientation where the HR rep says the word inclusive 17 times in 40 minutes. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a very reasonable question forms. Is any of this real, or is this just a company trying to look good? The honest answer is both, and that's actually the most useful thing I can tell you, because once you understand the real mix of motivations, genuine business interest, regulatory pressure, talent strategy, and yes, some straight-up image management, you can navigate this world with your eyes open. Whether you're a female intern trying to understand your value, a male colleague trying to make sense of the landscape, or a hiring manager who wants to do this right, this conversation matters. So let's actually have it. The business case is not a slogan, it's a number. This is where the conversation usually gets lost in feelings when it should be anchored in data. In 2020, McKinsey & Company published Diversity Wins, the third installment of their ongoing research into the relationship between corporate diversity and financial performance. They analyzed over 1,000 large companies across 15 countries. The finding was not ambiguous. Companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on their executive teams were 25% more likely to achieve above average profitability than companies in the bottom quartile. 25%. That is not a rounding error. That is the difference between a company that grows and one that stagnates. Now, internship programs are the front door of the talent pipeline. The companies that are serious about gender diversity at the executive level, the ones McKinsey is tracking, know that you don't just conjure a diverse leadership team out of nowhere. You build it. You recruit deliberately at the entry level, you retain with intentional culture, and 15 years later, your leadership team reflects those early choices. Hiring female interns is not charity. For companies that understand the data, it is the first step in a deliberate, financially motivated talent strategy. The Boston Consulting Group reinforced this with their own research in 2018, studying 1,700 companies across 8 countries. They found that companies with above-average diversity on their management teams reported innovation revenues, meaning revenue from products and services launched in the last 3 years, that were 19 percentage points higher than companies with below-average leadership diversity. 19 points. In most industries, that kind of gap in innovation output is existential over a decade. The talent pool problem. Nobody talks about. Honestly, here's another angle that doesn't get enough airtime. Companies are not hiring female interns purely out of generosity. They are hiring female interns because in many fields, particularly technology, finance, and engineering, the competition for qualified talent is brutal, and any company that artificially limits its candidate pool is at a structural disadvantage. Women represent 50% of the global population and are increasingly outpacing men in university enrollment and graduation rates. In the United States, women earned 57% of all bachelor's degrees in 2022. In the UK, the gap is similar. A company that is not actively attracting female talent is not being progressive. It is being strategically incompetent. Now zoom into something like the technology sector, where the talent shortage is well documented and the gender imbalance is stark. The global tech talent shortage is projected to reach 85 million unfilled positions by 2030, according to a Korn Ferry study. 85 million. In that environment, companies that have successfully built reputations as welcoming to women in tech, organizations that recruit deliberately, build female intern cohorts, create visible pathways for advancement, are accessing a segment of the talent market that many of their competitors are fumbling. That's a competitive moat, not a feel-good initiative. Let's talk about ESG because companies sure are okay. Now for the part that is genuinely more complicated. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, the framework that institutional investors use to evaluate companies on non-financial factors. In the last decade, ESG investing has exploded from a niche consideration to a mainstream standard. As of 2022, more than 1/3 of all professionally managed assets globally, over $35 trillion, were managed with ESG criteria in mind, according to the Global Sustainable Investment Alliance. The S in ESG, the social component, includes metrics on workforce diversity, pay equity, and inclusion programs. What this means in plain English is that a company's diversity numbers now directly affect its access to capital. If BlackRock or Vanguard or any of the major institutional funds are evaluating your workforce gender breakdown as part of their investment criteria, then your female intern cohort is not a people program. It is a balance sheet variable. I am not making this cynical to depress you. I am telling you this because it is the truth, and the truth is actually useful. Some companies that loudly celebrate their female internship programs are doing so because their CFO told them their ESG score was dragging down their stock price. That happens. Knowing it happens means you can ask better questions. The performative versus the real. How to tell the difference. So how do you know when a company actually means it versus when they're running a diversity program as a PR exercise? The research gives us a pretty clear signal. Catalyst, the global nonprofit focused on workplace inclusion, has published extensive data showing that the companies where gender diversity initiatives actually translate into retention and advancement share specific characteristics. They measure outcomes, they tie manager compensation to diversity results, and their female employees reach senior levels at rates comparable to their male counterparts. The companies running performative programs have a very different signature. They hire female interns in numbers they can photograph for the annual report, then watch those women leave within 2 years because the culture does not actually support their growth. Harvard Business Review published research in 2019 analyzing why diversity programs fail, and the core finding was that initiatives focused purely on recruitment, without corresponding changes to promotion practices, mentorship access, and pay equity, produced no meaningful change in senior gender representation over a 5-year horizon. You can fill your intern class with exceptional women every summer. If the promotion pipeline is broken, you're not building diversity, you're running a revolving door. What the research says about diverse teams actually working better. Let's come back to something fundamental, because I don't want this to get lost in the cynicism. There is genuine, rigorous, peer-reviewed science on why gender-diverse teams make better decisions. In 2017, researchers at the MIT Sloan Management Review analyzed team performance data across hundreds of organizations and found that gender-diverse teams demonstrated measurably higher collective intelligence, not because women are smarter than men or vice versa, but because gender-diverse groups are more likely to engage in the kind of broad information sharing and perspective-taking that leads to better problem-solving. Homogeneous teams develop blind spots. Diverse teams see around corners. This is why the intern pipeline matters beyond optics. When companies build real diversity at the entry level and retain it through to senior leadership, they are not just checking a box. They are structurally improving the quality of their decision-making over time. The companies that have figured this out, and the data from McKinsey, BCG, and Catalyst consistently identifies the same organizations at the top, are not doing it because it is fashionable. They are doing it because it works, and the financial record proves it. So why do companies hire female interns? The real answer is layered, and different companies sit at different points on the spectrum. Some are doing it because their leadership has genuinely internalized the performance data and is building a talent strategy to match. Some are doing it because their investors are demanding an ESG score that doesn't embarrass them. Some are doing it because the war for qualified talent is so fierce that limiting your candidate pool to half the population is a form of competitive self-harm. And some, if we're being completely honest, are doing it because it photographs well and the CEO liked the optics at the last board meeting. What matters is what happens after the hire. If the culture is real, the opportunity is real. If the diversity is a photo op, the revolving door will tell you within a year. You deserve to know the difference, and now you do.